Welcome to this week's episode of Ask Your Excel Question. In one of our previous videos, we saw how we can create a drop-down list, which is a simple drop-down list. In this video, we are going to learn how we can create a dynamic drop-down list of only distinct values. So as you see here on the screen, if we have an input list which has the same value repeating multiple times, for example, A, B, C, they are repeated multiple times. A is repeated 5 times, B is repeated 4 times, and C is appearing only once. So if we have such a list, how can we create a drop-down list which will only show the distinct values? So that's what we're going to learn in this video. We're going to use a 4-step process to do so. Now let's get started. So now I have a new file where all I have is the list of values here. So these are the 10 values, and then I've typed in list at the top as a header. So now the first step in our process is to convert this into a table. So just click inside and then do Control T and then do My Table has headers, and then it creates a table. And we're going to just name the list of values here. So I'm going to select all the data inside this table, and I'm going to go to the name box and I'm going to type list. And this is because I'm going to use that in the formulas later. So it's easier if I have a name to the named range of cells. The reason why we create a table is in the future, if you add more values to this table, then our method would still be adapting to it and it'll still work. Those are the reasons why we create the table and also create a list or a named range. Okay, so now the first step is complete. Let's go to the second step where we have a distinct list to create. This formula is going to have 5 different components, so we'll just do one at a time. So we're going to create our distinct list from the cell E2. The first part of the formula is actually to say, go and find how many times each of my values in my list has appeared in the distinct list already. So since this is the beginning, I'm going to start, our distinct list from cell E2. And I want this range to keep growing. As we build our distinct list, it needs to grow. And so I'm going to put the criteria here as the list, which is the name we created to our list of values here. So I'm going to do enter now. So this is the first part. And this should result, for example, if I go and do F9, it'll result in 10 items in an array. So 10 because we have 10 values in this list, and it says 0, and that's because it's counting how many times A has appeared in our distinct list. Our distinct list, keep in mind, is just E2 at this point. How many times the value A has appeared in this cell, and nothing. And again, it's not about the exact character. It needs to match the whole cell. Only if you have distinct list typed in here as a value, it'll get counted. Otherwise, it'll all return zeros because they are not part of the distinct list yet. And so it'll result in a bunch of zeros. Great. Now, the next thing we want to do is to say, find the first occurrence of 0. First occurrence of 0 indicates that that value has not yet appeared in our distinct list. Before we write go and find the first 0, we need to convert this into an array first. So I'm going to do an index, and index needs a row number. We can leave that as blank and just close it, and that still creates the array. So nothing is going to change. It's going to look the same. We have 10 values of zeros. Now, the third part of the formula is to do the match. As I mentioned, we need to go and find the first occurrence of the 0. Now, you already saw that all the 10 values are 0. So we just need to find the first one, which should be over here. So the match function, we're going to input 0 because we need to have exact match. And this match function should result, so let's just do that. It says 1 because it finds 0 in the first row itself. So it returns the row number. Match returns the row number, and hence we need to go and find what's the value in that first row in our list. So again, I use an index function, go to the list, which is this, and return the result of the item in the first row. And so I'll just close it. It gives us A. This is great. So it'll become more clear when I expand this formula. I'm going to just drag it down, and we'll see that it's automatically creating a distinct list. And the reason why let me just explain A and B first before we go to the errors later. The A is, as we saw already here, this is a bunch of zeros, and the index function just converts into an array, and the match results in 1, and then index function again goes and finds the first value in the list. That's nice. The second part is to go to B, and here you see that the range has expanded. The distinct list now includes E2 and E3. So now it includes A as one of the possible values in the distinct list. So that's why when we do the COUNTIF now, you don't get all zeros, you actually get 1, 1, and then zeros, and then 1. So wherever A is appearing in our list, you will find that there is 1, because there is one occurrence of A in our distinct list already. So as we go down further, for example here, you will see that everywhere there is a B, you will see that there is a 1, because there is a B in our distinct list already, because our distinct list has expanded to E2 to E4. So the very, very critical part of this formula is this expanding range. So this is a locked cell reference or absolute reference, which is not going to change, but then this is a relative reference, which is going to change as we go down. That is the key part of this formula. So once you get that part, I think the rest of the part would become somewhat easy to understand. But this formula now gives us the distinct list of values. And since there are only 3 distinct values, the fourth and all these cells actually give us an error. So I'm just going to wrap it up with if error, because we want to just show nothing if there is an error. So I'm going to double click it now to again copy the formula down, and now we will see A, B, C, and then there's nothing here. So this is now our distinct list of values, and you can expand this formula to as many rows as you expect the number of distinct values to be. So for example, if you expect there to be 20 different distinct values, then you want to expand it all the way down so that there are 20 values that can be captured. So I'm going to stop with this because I only have 10 values in my input, so I'm going to keep my distinct list also to be 10. The third part of our 4-step process is to calculate the number of distinct values. Once again, just like everything in Excel, there are many ways to do it. I'm just going to use a COUNTIF. I'm going to just do COUNTIF list comma list, and this basically goes and finds, let's do F9 to see what it says. It says A appears 5 times, another A, it appears 5 times, B appears 4 times, C appears once. So this COUNTIF function just counts the number of occurrences of each of the values in the list. And we want to do 1 divided by this. And so once I do 1 divided by, and I'm going to edit F9, and we will see 0.2, 0.2, 0.25. So A appears 5 times in our list. So when we divided 1 by the COUNTIF result, it gave us A will be represented as 0.2, 0.2, and then 3 more 0.2. So there are 5 0.2s representing A. When you add all the 5 0.2s, you get 1. So A is represented as 1 unit. And similarly, B appears 4 times in our list. And so you see 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, 0.25. So when you add them up, you get 1. C appears once, so it only appears as 1. So that is also 1. When you add all of these values, you get 3, which is the number of distinct values. So in order to do the 3, what we're going to do is to just do a sum product, which is an array function. And I'm just going to press simple enter because it's an inbuilt array function, sum product. So it results in distinct 3 values. So we would want to use this in our drop-down list. So I'm going to call this cell number of distinct, or NUMDIST. And now we will use that to create our drop-down list. So to create our drop-down list, I'm just going to write first a formula to say offset. Offset will, okay, let's say we start with E3. So what this result should give us is go to E3, which is where our distinct list begins, and then say, don't change anything, just stay there. You don't have to move in rows or columns. That's why I put 0, 0. And then the height of this array is going to be number of distinct values. So this means, I'm going to hit enter first and we'll show you F9. So we will see that it goes to A, and since the number of distinct values is 3, it stops in row 3. So A, B, C. So if you have more distinct values, it'll automatically adjust to it. So that's the idea behind the offset function. So I'm going to copy this formula and I'm going to go to data validation. Keep in mind, I'm still in cell I3. I'm just going to do list, paste the formula here. Okay. So now I have my drop-down list. So this is how you can build a dynamic drop-down list. If I add another value here as D, it creates D, and then in the drop-down list, I will see D. It could even handle numbers. So if I make it 5, you will see that there are 5 distinct values. That's just a coincidence. I can do 4. And then it now says 5 distinct values because there's A, B, C, D, and then 4. And now when you go here, you'll see A, B, C, D, and also 4. So it automatically accommodates numbers and text. One of the things is, I sorted it just now. The idea is the drop-down list will always be in the order in which you entered the data in the list. So if, let me just change it to E. And so for example, now E is at the top and then A, B, C, D because E is at the top in the list. So if I sort this now to A, B, C, D, E, now this also changes and this also changes accordingly to A, B, C, D, E. So just to recap, this is a 4-step process. Start with the list of values. First step is to create a name to this range of cells and then put them in a table so that it'll auto expand when new values are entered. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to write this formula, which will create a distinct list of values for us. Step number 3 is to calculate the number of distinct values we have in our input list, and then write a formula with an offset function and then put that in the data validation. This is our 4th step. So if you do all these 4 steps, you can create a dynamic list of drop-down list of values, which will only show the distinct values. I have added a few links and other videos that I've found useful on this topic. I hope you can also learn from those videos just like I did. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions about this or if you have any suggestions for future videos, please post them in the comments. I really look forward to your feedback. I'll see you all in the next episode of Ask Your Excel Question. Thank you very much for watching.